Kanvar wiggled his right hand free of the ropes, but there wasn't time to ready the crossbow. Dar-Anadhar's wings blasted air into Kanvar's face. Kanvar dropped his right hand to the sword and pulled it out. Dar-Anadhar reared back when he heard the sound of the blade leaving the sheath. He knew what sword Kanvar carried, knew it could cut through his scales. He'd been hurt enough from it already. "Come back so I can finish you off, have you?" Kanvar shouted, trying to sound a lot braver than he felt. His feet were still bound, he couldn't wield the sword against the dragon very well on his knees, and he doubted his armor would protect him from Dar-Anadhar's fire at this close of range. Dar-Anadhar roared, but his thoughts echoed with dark laughter at Kanvar's bravado. "You won't survive this time, wormling. Indumali can't save you now." Kanvar noticed Dar-Anadhar's right claw had grown swollen and ugly. A patch of scales was missing from the back where Indumali had bitten him. Dar-Anadhar sucked in a breath, readying his fire. "But it was Indumali who sent me up here," Kanvar shouted. He must have had a reason. Dar-Anadhar recoiled and backbeat his wings to put more space between himself and Kanvar. "You heard my voice?" Kanvar's hand shook on the sword. He didn't have the strength to hold it up in defensive position for long even with its magic. "Yes, of course. I've heard your thoughts since you carried me off yesterday." Dar-Anadhar wiggled his claw where the sword had cut through his palm while he carried Kanvar. "By the fountain," he swore. "The sword? It cut you too? I thought I smelled your blood." Kanvar lowered the tip of the sword to the ground. "Split my leg open." Dar-Anadhar let out an ear-shattering roar. Pain stabbed Kanvar's left arm, and he realized it hurt where Dar-Anadhar had broken his wing. The blue dragon would not be able to stay aloft much longer. Maybe if Kanvar kept talking to it, he might be able to put off Dar-Anadhar's attack until the dragon plummeted back down into the jungle. Dar-Anadhar let loose an angry fire of breath that seared the rocks over Kanvar's head. "Missed me," Kanvar thought, then realized Dar-Anadhar could hear him. That wasn't a good way to try to keep the dragon from killing him. "I won't miss again, you blood-sucking monster." He drew in another breath. The air flashed gold behind Dar-Anadhar, and a spurt of sparkling gold light blew into Dar-Anadhar's face. Dar-Anadhar's head lowered. He let out a sigh, straightened his wings, and drifted down into the clouds. "Monster?" Kanvar muttered, sheathing the sword. "Why is he calling me a monster? He's the huge giant with claws and fire breath." A gold shimmer rippled toward the ledge, and a great gold dragon slipped into view in the cliff's shadow. It was ancient and gigantic, though pristine and unscarred. Wisdom shone from its eyes. The golden stone in its forehead burned with intense light, making Kanvar blink and look away. He heard a scuffing and saw a man slide off of the dragon's neck onto the ledge. A man Kanvar had not seen in 5 years. "Father," Kanvar whispered. His father's face was the same and had not aged at all, but he seemed bigger somehow, brighter, his wavy golden hair more brilliant and set with a thin gold crown, his movements more graceful and dragon-like. He pulled a hunting knife from his belt and went straight for the ropes that held Kanvar. The ropes fell away, and Amar enveloped Kanvar in a tight hug. My boy, I thought you were dead." An old anger filled Kanvar, and he pushed his father away. "You left me to die." Amar's face twisted in sorrow. "I was hurt, but I came back for you as soon as I could. It wasn't more than an hour later. I searched all over Dara for you and didn't give up until I heard word that Mani had killed you." Kanvar felt an intense sorrow burn through his father's breast. "I'm sorry, Kanvar," Amar said. Kanvar wanted to accept his apology. Wanted to be glad to see his father. But the hurt he'd bottled up inside for so long continued to bubble out. "You abandoned me. You took Devaj with you, but not me. Because I'm a cripple and useless. You only care about Devaj, and I am nothing to you. And now I find out you're some kind of king. Of course you couldn't have a crippled son in line for the throne." Amar held up a shaking hand. "That's not the way it was. Or is. You've never let your physical challenges stop you from doing anything. And I encouraged that, remember? I knew you were as strong and valuable as any other boy. I took Devaj because he was helpless and dying. You weren't. I believed you had the cunning and skill to get away. And I was right. Look at you. A successful dragon hunter. Indumali told me you killed a lesser green serpent and a great green dragon. You even stood up to and blinded the most dangerous great dragon in the world. My mistake wasn't in leaving you. It was in doubting you afterward. It was in believing a mere human woman could kill you." Amar let out a deep breath. "Thank goodness Indumali found you and sent you to the village. There are so few dragons or humans left who still consider Rajahansa their king. The great gold dragon rumbled his agreement. True, and my joy breath is not likely to last long on Dar Anadhar. He'll be back soon with a band of his followers. He knows he can't defeat me alone. Kanvar shook his head. Dar Anadhar has gone into exile. Abba Vasima now leads the blues, and he's taken to Vaj. Rajahansa's eyes closed to glowing slits. You hear my voice? But you cannot. I smell the fever still upon you. You have not yet bonded. Kanvar grimaced. He had no explanation for his ability to hear the dragon's voices. And he felt very uncomfortable standing beneath the towering gold dragon that perched on the cliff ledge. Amar clenched his fists and stared hard at Kanvar. Kanvar felt him thinking, trying to figure out what had happened to give Kanvar some of the Naga powers before bonding. Kanvar recoiled from his father's mind. Despite his father's explanation, Kanvar felt angrier than ever. Bitter. Furious even. He started to shake. He sensed Dar Anadhar circling below. Then his wounded leg gave out, and he fell forward. His father caught him. I don't think now's the time to question the boy, he said to Rajahansa. Let's get him home first. I don't want to go home with you, Kanvar cried out and struggled to get away from his father. I hate you. Rajahansa let out an angry growl and bared his teeth. Shield his mind, Amar. I sensed Dar Anadhar's presence in the boy's thoughts. Some of Dar Anadhar's blood must have splashed onto your son. Unfortunate. And it will be a painful mistake to remedy. Amar pressed a hand against Kanvar's forehead. What felt like a steel wall went up around his mind, and Kanvar's anger vanished. He gasped, feeling like he had been plunged into a black abyss. His mind went silent and he was alone. Excruciatingly lonely. No. Please. Let me go. He struggled in his father's strong grip. Rajahansa let out an angry hiss. Get him under control, Amar. I can't carry him like this, and Dar Anadhar is coming back. Amar's mind slipped past the steel wall into Kanvar's. Be still, he ordered, and forced Kanvar's body to obey. Kanvar's body went limp. Try as hard as he might, he could not move. No, Kanvar pleaded. Let me go. I don't want to be alone. You won't be alone, Amar responded in a firm, reassuring voice. Not for long. We will find a suitable companion for you. You will bond properly and be at peace. I promise you. You are my son. I'm trying to help you. Not hurt you. He handed Kanvar to Rajahansa, who lifted him onto the back of his neck just behind his head. The plates on the gold dragon's neck had a natural smooth indent, perfect for riding. Amar climbed up behind Kanvar and wrapped an arm around his chest. Rajahansa lifted his head, and the plates on the back of his skull came down to lock the humans in place so they wouldn't fall as he leapt into the air, flapping his great wings. The sudden surge into the air made Kanvar's stomach flip. Rajahansa's wings rippled out in smooth, steady strokes, making Kanvar's flight yesterday with Dar Anadhar seem like a turbulent ocean compared to Rajahansa's slick glide across the sky. They skimmed the top of the clouds, winding around the great peaks deep into the mountain range. The high air tasted sweet and light on Kanvar's tongue, but he grew dizzy from lack of oxygen, and his fever alternated between burning hot flashes and cold chills. He shivered, though his father still controlled his body, refusing to let Kanvar struggle against the arm across his chest. Not that Kanvar would have at this height. He had no wish to experience the long plummet to the ground below. When Rajahansa started his descent, Kanvar barely felt it, the dragon tilted so smoothly in the air. Kanvar might not have noticed at all if the clouds hadn't suddenly come up to meet him. Then he found himself inside them. Hot and wet. The moisture settled onto his skin and hair, and dripped down the scales of his armor. The misty gray nothing twisted his insides into a painful knot. He felt as if his father had reached inside him and torn out a piece of his soul. He was empty. Alone. Imprisoned in his own mind. He pushed against the wall his father had created, but he could not escape. His thoughts were trapped inside his empty mind, and his father held his body hostage. Then they came out below the clouds into the center of a bowl of towering mountains. Rajahansa turned and glided toward a flash of gold up against one of the hills. As they drew closer, Kanvar saw it was a palace of huge glittering gold walls, open windows and vast halls beyond. Kanvar gasped. Even with all he'd read about the original palace at Stone Fountain, this building seemed larger and more splendid. Kanvar couldn't have imagined such a building in all his most vivid daydreams. It's actually smaller than the original palace, his father said, still connected to his mind enough to sense his thoughts. Just a shadow of it. Kanvar could not believe it. No human building came near the vast and complicated architecture of Raja Hansa's home. The gold dragon swooped in through one of the windows, which was wide enough that even with Raja Hansa's great size he had no trouble flying through the opening and landing on the glittering gold floor. His great hind legs and claws left dazzling indents in the golden surface. He folded his wings and lowered his neck so Amar could slide off, dragging Kanvar with him. As soon as Kanvar's feet touched the ground, his father returned control to his body, though he left the wall firmly around Kanvar's mind. Kanvar limped away from his father and the dragon, went to the window, and looked out. Sheer mountain cliffs fell away to the jungle canopy far beneath him. He saw a flash of blue skim along the trees below and disappear as it reached the cliffs. He shook his head and blinked. There were no stairs cut in the rock, no dangling vines long enough for him to climb down. His father had brought him to a gilded prison. "Welcome home, Kanvar," his father said. "I think you're going to like it here. Come with me. We need to tend to that leg. Too bad Indumali didn't do it, but he couldn't risk nicking you with his poisonous fangs." He started across the vast chamber to an arch on the far side from the window. Kanvar stayed by the window. His right leg shook, threatening to give out on him. His left leg twisted awkwardly behind him, as useless as ever. His father whirled back around to face him. "Can you walk? Do you want help?" His father had always been sensitive to Kanvar's feelings when he was young, always asking if he wanted physical help instead of assuming he needed it. Kanvar blinked back moisture that came into his eyes. His father had not changed. He was still brave, strong, courteous, and thoughtful. It was Kanvar who had changed, Kanvar who had become angry and bitter. But no. He'd forgiven his father long ago. He had no reason for acting the way he had on the cliff. Amar took a step back toward Kanvar. "Dar Anadhar hates Raja Hansa and me. Our disagreements with him have been long and bitter. Plus, I imagine he's furious about losing his sight and having Abba Vesama replace him. Those feelings were not your own. You accidentally created a mental link with him when you wounded him. But it is not a true bond. I've blocked his mind from yours so you can think clearly. You feel empty now because you have the fever and your soul seeks its companion. Dar Anadhar is not a suitable companion. In fact, I'm sure he'd violently reject such a suggestion, not that Raja Hansa would ever allow it. Only great golds have the right type of blood to bond with the Nagas." Kanvar shuddered. "He called me a blood-sucking monster. What did he mean? Even after he realized our minds were linked, he tried to kill me." Raja Hansa, who had stood unmoving during this exchange, shifted and let out an angry rumble. Amar looked up at his dragon. "Let me handle this, Raj." He strode back to Kanvar. "Dar Anadhar is a cranky old dragon. Don't worry about it too much. Come with me and I'll explain everything." He put a hand on Kanvar's shoulder. "You're hurt. Let's go get that leg fixed up." Sweat poured down Kanvar's aching body. He doubted he could stay standing, much less walk any distance. "Will you let Raja Hansa carry you?" Kanvar shuddered and staggered backward. His father grabbed him and pulled him away from the window. "Raja Hansa will not hurt you." "But I killed a great green." Raja Hansa let out a deep growl. Indumali said it was in self-defense. "Was it?" Kanvar could barely make out Raja Hansa's voice through the wall his father had placed around his mind. "I don't know." Raja Hansa lowered his head to stare Kanvar in the face. "A Naga is allowed to protect his own life. If Mahat was stupid enough to attack you, then he deserved his fate. He shouldn't have been hunting the villagers in the first place. They are under my protection. He broke my laws and paid the price for it." Kanvar's father helped him out of the chamber into a hall where arched doorways led off into other dragon-sized rooms. In one such room a young gold dragon sat on her haunches beside a rock table with a quill clutched in her claw as she put words to paper. "Not all civilization has been lost," Amar said as Kanvar stared at the dragon scribe in wonder. The hall narrowed and came to a section with smaller doorways. Amar led Kanvar into a cozy room. A cool wind gusted in through a window that overlooked the cliffs. A wooden bookshelf stood up against one of the walls. Kanvar's jaw dropped. So many books. He'd seen a few scrolls before. The dragon hunter Jati training master owned a few and taught all his students to read. Kanvar's mother had kept a single bound volume in their home, a copy of the Dragon Hunter's Guide written by Kumar Rasa. Gold dragons are scholars, for the most part. Amar helped Kanvar ease down to sit on a mattress. Across from the bed, a life-sized portrait hung on the wall. Kanvar swallowed hard. The picture was that of his mother. Kanvar had never seen his mother so young before. She's beautiful, he whispered in awe. Yes. Amar crossed the room and reached toward her as if she really stood there in person. This is how she looked when I first set eyes on her. She stole my heart. In all my 500 years I've never loved a woman like I love her. Raja Hansa did not approve. He said nothing good would come of it. Marrying Kumar Ross's daughter could only end in heartache. Amar dropped his hand and faced Kanvar. He was only partially right. It did break my heart. And from what I hear, hers as well. But, he strode across the room and gripped Kanvar's arm, some good did come of it. I have you and Devaj. I'd break my heart 10 times over again if it meant I could have more of such treasures. Kanvar's mind spun with questions as he tried to take in all the implications of his father's words. You really loved her? You're 500 years old? But Devaj is gone, taken by the blue dragons. We have to get him back before they kill him. They mean to torture him. Kanvar's words spilled out in a mixed jumble. Steady there. Amar opened a cabinet and pulled out a basin of water and a cloth. He brought them over and set them on a table next to the bed, then returned to the cabinet for a flask of viscous liquid. Devaj is probably all right for the moment. I can't feel him, so he must be unconscious. We've sent an emissary to bargain for his return. Will they free him? I believe they will. Amar unstrapped the crossbow from Kanvar's back. Abba Vasima is much more reasonable than Dar Anadhar. You've done us all a great service in getting that old snake out of power. Kanvar recoiled in anger and then wondered why he should care if Amar hated Dar Anadhar. From somewhere close by, Dar Anadhar's antagonism for the gold dragon seeped into Kanvar's mind. Dar Anadhar has followed us here, Kanvar thought. Amar frowned, and the steel wall around Kanvar's mind clamped down tighter. Kanvar moaned as he plunged once again into solitude. Take your armor off so I can treat that leg. Amar looked the crossbow over, glaring at it in disapproval before setting it down on the table. I've seen better weapons. Kanvar bristled. I worked hard for that crossbow. It took me years to earn enough money. Not that you would understand, living here in your golden palace. Kanvar felt a wave of anger flash through his father's mind, followed by deep regret. I'm sorry, Kanvar. But that part of your life is over. Let it go. You've a far better life ahead of you now. Kanvar unstrapped his belt and handed the golden sword over to his father. Then he pulled off his dragonhide breeches and the leggings beneath. The villagers had wrapped the wound in his thigh with a leafy poultice. Amar used a knife to cut the poultice free and reveal the ugly wound. Amar grimaced. Went for a swim in the river, I hear. Enough slime in there to infect any wound. Well, I can't close it up like that. We'll have to clean it first. But don't worry. It won't hurt. Lie back and relax while I heat this water. Kanvar clenched his fists. No way would cleaning that wound be painless. Amar lit a fire beneath a basin of water. The water will be warm in just a moment. You really should lie back. Kanvar shook his head. I've never seen anything like this palace. How did it get here? Who built it? The gold dragons built it. Far too much was lost to the world when Stone Fountain fell. This palace is small and simple compared to what they built at Stone Fountain. Kanvar kept his eyes locked on his father so he didn't have to look down at his festering leg, or smell the putrid stench that wafted up from it. You talk as if you were there at the time. No. But my father was. Though he was too young to remember much of when the Blue Dragons led the revolt and murdered my grandfather. But Parmvar, the man who rescued him, told me many tales of what used to be. He was able to carry a few valuable objects away with them. Books of knowledge that we've used to rebuild some of the wonders that were so common then. He took a deep breath. The water's near boiling. Kanvar, lie down. Don't make me force you, please. Kanvar lay back and gritted his teeth, expecting a good deal of pain from cleaning the wound. You worry too much. Amar leaned over him and rubbed a soothing hand across his forehead. Don't fret now, and don't try to fight me. His father's mind slipped into his own like oil into water. Kanvar stiffened and tried to push the oil back to the surface. Kanvar, trust me, his father said. The oil slipped out of Kanvar's grip and thrust itself deep into Kanvar's mind, close to the very center of his being. It twisted and Kanvar's right leg went numb as if suddenly severed from his body. Kanvar cried out in fright and tried to sit up. But his father grabbed control of Kanvar's body like he had on the cliffs and froze Kanvar in place. Sorry. Didn't want to have to do that. But I can't have you thrashing around. Just relax. It won't take that long to clean and heal this wound. I'll free your body as soon as I'm done. So powerful, Kanvar thought. No wonder the humans fear the Nagas. He half wished he had a singing stone that would keep his father from being able to use his powers to enter his mind. What did you do with grandfather Rasa? He asked. His father must have used his powers to get rid of Rasa somehow. He's fine. Amar wet the rag in the hot water and set about cleaning Kanvar's wound. Kanvar could neither see the wound nor feel his father working with it. But he could smell the infection and the blood. His stomach churned. His father continued talking about grandfather Rasa. He started a new life with the Tuniat tribe in the Great North. Even remarried, last I heard. It's done his old heart some good. He needed someone after Mani's mother died. But he didn't go there of his own free will, did he? Kanvar said. He had now experienced firsthand how easily his father could manipulate someone else's mind. Rasa's departure was necessary. He found out I was a Naga. Amar set aside the cloth and bowl of hot water, now tinted red with Kanvar's blood. He opened the flask of liquid and poured some into his cupped hand. Dragon saliva. Your leg will be fine now. Good as new. Though you'll have a lovely scar to show off to your children and grandchildren. He smoothed the liquid down the length of the cut. But it hurt mother so badly when he disappeared, Kanvar protested. How could you do that to her? Another even more revolting thought struck him and he had to ask. Did my mother even really love you, or did you just force her to believe she did? Amar wiped his hands on the cloth and recapped the flask of dragon saliva, turning away as he did so that Kanvar couldn't see his face. I loved your mother. I told you that. That's not what I asked. Kanvar felt helpless anger as he lay unable to move beneath his father's power. I did not force your mother to do anything, Amar snapped. I courted her the same as any other man would have. I courted her, and I won her heart. No mind control involved. He returned the flask to the cupboard and slammed it shut. But now she's rejected you, you might as well let grandfather Rasa come home. Go and give him his memories back. It was cruel to send him away, wrong to meddle with his mind. Kanvar battled with his father's mind to get control of his own body back. Stop it. Amar strode over to the bed and touched Kanvar's forehead, releasing him and returning feeling to his leg. Kanvar sat up. His leg ached, but the skin was already starting to knit together. He glared at his father. Amar returned his glare, eyes flashing, light shimmering from the gold band on his brow. If I give Rasa his memories back, he'll go home. Mani will tell him what I am, and he'll come hunting me. He'll never rest until one or both of us are dead. Do you want that, Kanvar? Do you want to see the two of us kill each other?